we're talking about the supply and demand of housing and
Yeah.
how to make it more affordable.
Yeah.
So it's gone so far out of hand. I heard a recent little thing to say that 1/3 of British Columbians are considering moving.
Yes, that's
It's
true.
like our children cannot afford these rents
Yeah.
and they can't afford these houses.
That's right.
So how do we increase supply?
So first of all, it's very important to hold governments and elected politicians accountable for the results we get, not the promises we make. Now, this NDP government promised in 2017 they were going to make housing more affordable. We've actually ended up with the most expensive housing in the entire country and the highest rents in the entire country. So their solution, as you and I were just talking about, is to say, well, now we're going to wave a wand and make every single family lot up to a sixplex. Yeah, 4 to 6plex.
Yeah.
And the reason why that's not going to work is twofold. Number one, first of all, it takes all the work that communities have done for many decades in planning their communities, and it's basically walking up to the table and flipping it over and saying, well, too bad for all the work you've done. And that's a problem because what we don't want to do is get into what I call urban or suburban sprawl. Because if you do that and make every single family lot up to 4 units, you're going to force people to live all over the community, which means not very good transit, meaning they're going to have to drive. So that means more cars driving on the road, making it more complex and crowded. The other reason why it won't work is if you take a street of 10 homes and say, we're now going to make it 40, you have to upgrade the sewer, the water, the power. Who's going to pay for all that? If you're going to say, well, the buyer should, well, then that's going to be very expensive, unaffordable housing. That's going to be a challenge. Now, in certain areas, it makes sense as if you're close to transit corridors, etc. So on the, for example, SkyTrain's, line, you want to have lots of density. That makes a ton of sense. And then you have gentle density as you get farther and farther away until ultimately you're at single family home. But I think the big mistake they made is thinking that every single family lot should now be an automatic 4 units. It's just simply not going to work, and it will create huge challenges, not just in the costs, not just in the urban sprawl, but just think about parking, for example, on whatever street you happen to live on. Just imagine immediately now if you say, okay, on both sides of the street, we're going to now, instead of 10 homes on each side, we're going to have 40, 40, 80. That's going to be a problem.
Actually, now that I can attest to. My background is real estate for 41 years.
Right.
And I know in a lot of our homes, say Abbotsford focused, is we do a bunch of residential homes, but then everybody puts in a basement suite. There is no parking for 2 blocks.
Yeah, exactly.
It was never designed for that.
Yeah.
Like seriously, you have to walk 2 blocks just to get to the house.
And people it creates problems. I remember in Surrey here in a community called Clayton, when the government just put in some carriage, allowed carriage homes in the garages to be converted to carriage homes. It created fistfights literally on the streets where people were so angry about having no parking available, because of the renters, that it created all kinds of problems. So I guess my thing is this: I want to get the results that are going to work. And to me, that means making sure that we have policies that will achieve the desired result, more supply, because we need lots more, but also do it in a way that's not going to just upend all the good work that a lot of municipalities have done planning their communities.
For myself, I actually am a developer. I've done 5 subdivisions.
Right.
My first subdivision I felt took 6 weeks, 6 steps, 1983.
Yeah.
And today I call it 4,000 steps,
Yes.
4 years, $2.3 million of interest, right?
Oh, exactly.
I mean, I'm out.
Yeah,
there's hardly a developer left that I'm aware of that hasn't bowed out.
It's true.
This is too much bureaucracy.
It's too much bureaucracy. There's too much uncertainty. You never know when you're going to get to the finish line, all of those additional costs. Now, most people out there would say, well, what do we care about developers? Who cares if it's going to cost? Well, I'll tell you why you care, because they pass all those costs along to the end user, as you well know. And that means, and that's part of the reason why all these delays mean extra costs. All these extra costs and taxes mean higher housing prices.
My $2.3 million in interest, I'm passing on to the 8 homes. So that's $300,000 increase in price. That 4-year delay has cost the end user $300,000.
Absolutely. And that's something that the public doesn't fully understand. That's why it's so important to get people in government that actually know what they're talking about. We've got a whole collection of people in the NDP. I'm sure they mean well. Nobody gets elected to say, let's screw it all up. But look at the results we're getting. We've got the most unaffordable housing in North America. That's not a good result.
By the way, I'll give you one more stat. I'm a
Sure.
statistician.
Yeah.
We are the most expensive housing in the entire world. We've gone up 735% since 1993. But that's mostly because we brought in close to $3 trillion worth of initially the Hong Kong money and then mainland China. So that has made us also the highest rents in the world. I'm talking apple to apple. Right? So,
and now we're losing people. So,
what, 68,000 people left BC last year or something like that.
You're exactly right. 70,000 people. And that's called out-migration. So, because the NDP like to confuse people and say, oh, no, that's not true. We've got immigration. No, immigration is different than in-migration and out-migration. In-migration, typically British Columbia, we get more people moving into the province from the rest of Canada than are moving out of the province to the rest of Canada. Under the NDP, we're getting more people moving out of the province to other provinces than are coming into the province from other provinces. That's the 70,000 you talked about that have moved to places like Alberta.
So I sure wish I knew some numbers, and maybe you do yourself, but I know that people moving from Alberta, if they sell their home in Abbotsford, they're taking their $1 million of equity and they're taking to Alberta. So they're going to get that, whatever that is, $70 billion worth of influx. And the people coming to Canada, I know we got, don't quote me, but I hear numbers of 1.2 million new refugees came last year. But do they have any money at all? So if they can't afford a home here, then we're going to have to support them. So I don't know what the answer is. But
the answer is, I think at all levels of government, I'm just fed up, frankly, with politicians that haven't got a clue what they're talking about at the federal level, the provincial level, the local government level, all conspiring with, well-intentioned but frankly dumb policies that together have resulted in what we have today. And we're losing a whole generation of people who are giving up on British Columbia because it's gotten so expensive. So I've got to speak to a group here. So we're going to have to do this after.
This was fun talking to Kevin Falcon here and trying to find solutions for this province. How can we keep our people here? How can we make things more affordable? Number one issue.
Yeah, I think it is the number one issue. The final thing I'll say is this. I don't pretend to be the world's expert, but I spent 10 years in the housing sector working for a home builder that built more housing in 10 years from one developer than the entire province of British Columbia did over that same 10-year period. So frankly, I'd summarize it this way. The solution to the housing crisis isn't more government. It's actually less government. Get government the hell out of the way and incentivize the private sector with certainty, timeliness, and cost certainty. Then you'll get a lot more supply into the marketplace. And you know what happens when you got a lot of supply? A lot of competition now on pricing.
Oh, absolutely.
Then you'll start to get better pricing. So
appreciate your time.
All right, you bet.